CEO mocks janitor for lacking degree, but what happened next is absolutely transformative. Jake scrubbed the shiny tiles of the corporate office, the hum of fluorescent lights above flickering like a tired reminder of his unrelenting grind. As he mopped, he couldn't escape the echo of Amanda's cruel laughter, her voice slicing through the sterile air as she flaunted her degree with an arrogance only a CEO could muster. "He's just a janitor without a college education," she had sneered to her entourage, her perfectly manicured finger gesturing dismissively towards him. Those words stung, twisting like a knife in his gut. Would Mia ever see her father as more than just a cleaner? The shame layered thickly over his heart, fueling a fire he had tried to ignore. What did she know about his sacrifices? The nights spent with textbooks wide open, memorizing elements he had never been taught formally, just to ignite a spark of wonder in Mia's eyes. Those moments slipped through his fingers like sand, threatened by Amanda's disdain. How easy it was for her to dismiss him, to assume he was less than capable, because life had dealt him a different hand. As Jake continued to mop, an idea sparked like electricity in his mind. He had overheard Amanda bragging about a new product launch that could save the company from tumbling stock prices. This moment, amidst the judgment, ignited a bright ember of defiance in him. What if he could show her that he was more than what he appeared? The basement of daily suffering churned within him, his internal conflict growing more intense. Doubts waged war against determination. Was he fooling himself again, thinking he could be more? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake's breath quickened, the prospect of change both exhilarating and terrifying. With newfound resolve gnawing at the edges of his mind, he started chatting with Professor Collins, the gentle chemist who passed through the office, often humming soft tunes. The professor's quiet encouragement wrapped around Jake, weaving a tapestry of hope, urging him to explore his passion, a fire he had buried under the burdens of his daily grind. As weeks turned into months, his research progressed, pulling him deeper into the realm of chemistry and sustainable practices. Jake's fascination morphed into a manageable plan, visions of success creeping into his thoughts. Yet the shadows of self-doubt loomed larger. Would he manage to share this with Mia? What if he failed, again? As he stood on the brink of unveiling his potential, the company was rattled by a crisis. Amanda's desperation was palpable. Jake could see that she was backed into a corner, and ultimately she came across his groundbreaking project. The tangled weight of decency and betrayal pressed heavily upon him. Would he risk everything he had created to stand against her? Or would he remain silent and let her take the praises for his own hard work? The tension thickened, stretching every nerve in his body as he clutched his research notes. The uncertain path before him glared menacingly, each moment leading to the threshold between choices. He could walk away, a coward, or confront Amanda and earn his rightful place among the company's thinkers. But that required stepping out of the shadows he had known for too long. The question clawed at him. Be a janitor in her eyes forever, or dare to change the narrative? Fear and determination twisted together, creating a knot in his chest as he prepared to make the most pivotal decision of his life. Jake stood before the looming wall of corporate decorum, intricate glass panels reflecting the fragmented pieces of his resolve. Each breath felt like an anchor as he clutched his research notes, the weight of his dreams trembling within the thin pages. The air in the office was charged, an electric tension that pulsed through him as he watched Amanda retreat into her glass fortress, issuing orders with fervor and confidence as she manipulated the situation to her favor. Doubt gnawed at Jake's thoughts like a persistent shadow. Had the late nights spent immersed in textbooks and lab notes been for naught? Would his efforts crumble under the scrutiny of an audience that had always deemed him lesser? Remembering Mia's bright eyes, full of admiration, ignited a flicker of determination within him. He was not a mere janitor. He was a father and a scientist, both roles deserving a platform. The corporate chaos around him molded the backdrop of this essential moment. Conversations buzzed about impending losses and recovery strategies, but Jake heard whispers of his own aspirations that filled the cold space. He stepped closer to the conference room, the mirror-like glass reflecting his furrowed brow and resolute gaze. Did he want the world to see him as a janitor, forever tethered to the menial, or would he seize this chance to rise above? With a surge of conviction, Jake slid his notes into his pocket, prepared to speak to Amanda. Each step toward her office felt like marching into uncharted territory, his heart hammering with every echoing footfall. Pushing through the door, he felt a fleeting sense of control slip through his fingers, but he held on to it tightly. "Amanda," he began, voice steady despite the tremor inside him. "We need to talk." Her head snapped up, surprise flickering over her meticulously composed features. It was thrilling, nerve-wracking, yet somehow utterly liberating to finally address her directly. "What's this about, Jake?" she replied, her tone light yet laced with underlying condescension. He took a deep breath, collecting the fragments of his courage. "I've been working on a project that could potentially resolve the supply shortages we've been facing with our current product line. I genuinely believe it can benefit the company, but—" Amanda cut him off, her laughter sharp and dismissive. "What could you possibly offer, Jake? You're a janitor. Leave the business to those who understand it." In that instant, Jake's anger ignited. He was tired of playing the role expected of him. "I'm not just a janitor, Amanda. I've spent countless hours researching alternative solutions. I could provide fresh insights that could save the company from a major crisis." Her eyes narrowed, weighing his words as if attempting to uncover a deception. "And you want to present this to the board, without any formal approval?" The tension crackled between them. Jake felt the first inkling of a plan formulating in his mind. "Yes, I'll prepare a presentation. You may not value my contributions, but I believe in them. Give me a chance to prove my worth." The words were out before he realized what he had committed to, but they resonated with an unexpected clarity. Amanda chewed on the thought, recalibrating her approach. Just as it seemed she would dismiss him out of hand, an idea clicked in her mind, and her expression softened to one of shrewd calculation. "Fine, one shot." As he exited her office, exhilaration surged through him, intertwining with fear. This was the moment that could redefine everything, a pivot into a territory he never dared to claim. But the risk was immense. What if he failed? Would Amanda's scorn grow sharper? Or worse, would Mia's belief in him shatter? He stood at the threshold, the tension mounting on his spine. Determined, he would forge ahead, but he understood that each step into this new arena carried weight. Would he rise as the thinker he aspired to be, or collapse under the pressures of expectation? The answer lay in the coming challenges. With resolve burning fiercely, he turned back to his workspace, a new mission igniting within him. Next, he would transform his raw ideas into something tangible, a presentation that showcased not only his intelligence, but also his potential. The stakes were high, and the countdown had begun. Would he embrace this moment, or would he let it slip away? Jake settled into the familiar hum of the break room, the soft whir of the coffee machine offering some semblance of comfort amidst the impending pressure of his self-imposed deadline. He had one chance to translate the whirlwind of thoughts and equations that had consumed him into a cohesive presentation. Yet the gravity of the moment weighed heavily on his shoulders. As he uncapped a fresh notebook, complexity mingled with the ink's neat lines. He recalled the specifics of Amanda's dismissive gaze, and the laugh that echoed in his mind. It stung. The condescension was a palpable barrier he needed to break through. This wasn't just about proving her wrong. It was about affirming his own worth, an assertion that he too could contribute meaningfully in this world he had always been a part of, but had never truly belonged to. Determined, Jake began by outlining the core ideas. He divvied up the pages into sections, highlighting problems, solutions, and anticipated outcomes. Each segment represented not just data, but the culmination of years spent ignoring trivialization and nurturing his passion for science. He was acutely aware of the voices in his head, those who had discouraged him through his life, Yet he forced those echoes to fade into the background, allowing space for the sounds of possibility. Amidst the scribbled notes and theoretical frameworks, a nagging fear clawed at his mind. What if the board still viewed him as nothing more than the janitor he had fought so hard to escape? They may listen to his ideas, but would they take him seriously? This persistent anxiety threatened to pull him back into the shadows of doubt. With each stroke of his pen, however, he recognized a flicker of self-assurance. The research was solid. He had engaged with the material, dissected potential pitfalls, and crafted realistic strategies. If nothing else, he had the knowledge and the spark of innovation to create a meaningful impact. And that realization soon morphed into fuel for his fire, rekindling the determination he had felt in Amanda's office. This wasn't just about one presentation. It was about forging his identity anew. A few hours later, after multiple drafts and countless revisions, the once blank pages began to reflect a solid foundation, a bridge connecting his past experiences to a brighter professional future. The notion of who Jake was started to morph. He was not merely an underdog, he was a thought leader in the making. He could pivot from cleaning floors to cleaning up inefficiencies at a corporate level. As the sun sank low, casting shadows across his workspace, Jake felt a sense of urgency ripple through him. He needed to practice every inflection, every rhetorical pause, and the power behind his words. The board's expectations would not be different from Amanda's. This was where he would confront not only the barriers others placed before him, but the ones entrenched in his own mind. With the conference room looming on the horizon, Jake rehearsed in front of the mirror, his reflection slowly morphing into that of a confident, undeniable presence. Every time he spoke aloud, he stripped away the last remnants of his self-imposed title as a janitor, affirming his role as someone standing at the intersection of innovation and leadership. Yet, even as he prepared, a glimmer of trepidation flickered within him. Amanda's smirk haunted the corners of his ambition. What sabotage could she plan now that he was making a move? He steeled himself against her potential backlash, but deep down, he understood that her resentment would pale against the power of his resolve. The morning arrived, sunlight pouring through the windows, setting a stage painted with stakes he could scarcely comprehend. He took one final breath in his car, rehearsing the opening line. The moment would define him, but how would he rise amidst the judgment of the board? As he stepped into the building, a bold realization washed over him. This was not about avoiding failure. It was about embracing the opportunity to redefine himself, once and for all. With each step, the distance between self-doubt and self-actualization began to close, igniting the anticipation of what lay ahead. Would he deliver the presentation that not only changed perceptions, but also changed his life? The answer loomed just beyond the conference room doors, waiting to be revealed. The doors of the conference room swung open, and Jake stepped inside, heart hammering against his chest. The room, pristine and imposing, was bathed in an overhead glow that felt antiseptic. He instantly recognized the familiar faces of the board members seated around the sleek table, their expressions a complex mix of expectation and skepticism. He fought back a surge of doubt, reminding himself that he belonged here just as much as they did. As he positioned himself at the front, Jake felt a visceral connection to the years he had spent waiting for his moment, silently laboring in the shadows of corporate indifference. Today, he was not the invisible janitor. He was a man standing on the threshold of change, ready to claim ownership of his ideas. The projector flickered to life, casting his carefully crafted slides on the wall. His voice trembled slightly at the start, but as he launched into his presentation, the flutter of nervousness transformed into a steady rhythm. He outlined his findings with clarity and conviction, employing visuals that mapped the complexities of the challenges faced by the company. Proposals flowed from him like the ink on his pages, confident, assured, and undeniably informed. The board members leaned in, some taking notes, others exchanging discreet glances. Jake could sense their skepticism beginning to wane with each point he articulated. The technical terms felt more fluid, the narratives of his journey surfacing in a way that revealed both his intellect and relatability. He persisted, weaving personal anecdotes that linked back to the science of the solutions he offered, a clever strategy to humanize the data. But as the presentation progressed, Jake couldn't help but glance towards Amanda, who sat at the far end of the table, her arms crossed, her expression icily stoic. The flicker of arrogance in her eyes ignited a quiet fury within him, propelling him to pour every ounce of passion into his final segments. This was more than just professional validation. It was a personal battleground, a chance to show that he was no longer merely a reflection of his old self. Then came the question and answer session. The atmosphere shifted palpably, tension threading through the air. A board member asked a pointed question about potential risks. Without hesitation, Jake leaned into it, offering a well-thought-out analysis. He could see respect gradually etching itself on their faces. He was no longer simply a janitor mouthing science. He was a knowledgeable player in the room. But another voice emerged, tinged with condescension. Amanda seized the opportunity to challenge him, dissecting one of his proposals with an air of superiority. He felt the heat rise in his chest, the familiar specter of doubt trying to grip him anew. Her tone dripped with derision, but this time Jake was prepared. He focused on her words, unearthing the merit in her critique to further refine his stance. "Your perspective is valid, Amanda," he replied, voice steady, meeting her gaze with newfound determination. "But let's consider the actual data on which my recommendation is based. We can analyze the alternatives, but I'd argue this strategy provides the shortest path to profitability while minimizing risks." The room grew quieter, the weight of his words unmistakable. For the first time, Jake sensed the grit of his resolve resonating across the board. As the session wound down, he realized that he had not only presented his work, he had challenged perceptions, his own and everyone else's in the room. As he concluded, the board members offered sporadic nods, their previous skepticism visibly waning. But Jake knew the moment was not over yet. He needed to address Amanda one final time. Carefully, he turned to her, catching her eye with an intensity that didn't waver. "I'm here to contribute, Amanda. I may not have the degree, but I do have the vision." Leaving the conference room, Jake emerged into the fluorescent haze of the hallway, pulse racing, breath hitting. He had confronted more than questions today. He had confronted Amanda, and through her, the parts of himself that had always felt inferior. But as the adrenaline of the moment faded, a new collective question lingered. What next? Would the board's newfound respect translate into substantive change? Or had he merely scratched the surface of a deeper, more complicated struggle? As he walked away from the room, doubts loomed on the horizon, ready to challenge the very foundation of what he had just built. Jake leaned against the cool wall of the hallway, heart still racing from the intense confrontation. The crisp air of realization settled around him. He had momentarily defied not only Amanda but the entire preconception of his worth in this corporate jungle. Yet, the weight of the upcoming challenge loomed larger than his victory, making him acutely aware of the gap yet to be bridged. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Jake returned to his desk with renewed focus, diving deeper into the data and building out his proposals. The board's tentative respect felt like a fragile bubble. He questioned how to ensure it wouldn't burst at the slightest poke. Each interaction, every planning session, threw him into a cycle of self-assessment, amplifying his insecurities and doubts as Amanda's smirk replayed in his mind like a haunting refrain. He began to scrutinize his every decision, feeling the pressure of expectations resting squarely on his shoulders. Scripting his next moves became a comforting yet daunting routine. The initial thrill of his presentation faded slowly as he encountered the stark reality of executing his proposals. Each proposal required collaboration with teams whose input he had once ignored. Though he had fought for legitimacy in the boardroom, he now had to navigate the daily dynamics of colleagues who had years of institutional knowledge and degrees to match. One afternoon, he found himself in back-to-back meetings, caught in the grip of burnout. The once cohesive ideas started to unravel in the wake of conflicting opinions. Jake sensed frustration simmering inside him every time he faced dismissive comments or condescending responses, especially from Amanda. Navigating these conversations tested his determination, forcing him to continually justify his presence. "So, Jake, how do you propose we address the budget cuts with those lofty goals?" Amanda mocked one day, eyes glinting as she taunted him in front of the team. He felt his pulse quicken, but he resisted the urge to take the bait. Internally, the question spiraled. Why does her opinion matter so much? Was it Amanda's presence that threatened his credibility, or was it his lingering uncertainty about his own intellect? With a steely resolve, he pulled from the data he had meticulously gathered. While the budget cuts do present challenges, they also open avenues for innovation, he proposed, his tone measured as he leaned into the data points that supported his assertion. I believe channeling our resources toward this strategic shift can create sustainable growth. The response was mixed, with a few nodding along, but Amanda couldn't let it go. Right, but do you really think we can pull that off? You're not considering the complexity involved. For the first time, instead of feeling crushed by her derision, Jake felt a surge of heat, not just from anger but from a fierce resolve. This was his territory now. He was building something unique and had the groundwork to support it. I'm not overlooking complexity, Amanda. It's a challenge I'm prepared for. It takes a team willing to adapt, and if you collaborate with me, we can address these issues together. The meeting ended with a heavy silence, the boardroom air thick with uncertainty. But Jake recognized something. He had fought back effectively. He had redefined his approach from defensive to confrontational, demonstrating a layer of resilience he had suppressed for too long. Returning to his desk, he felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, but this time it leaned toward empowerment rather than doubt. His journey stretched before him, a roadmap filled with promise and ambiguity intertwined, beckoning him to traverse the uncharted territories of leadership. What other challenges awaited him among his peers? As he prepared for another day, he knew he had more than data and passion to offer. He had a vision capable of transforming not just the projects he worked on, but himself. The thrill of personal growth spurred him on, but the nagging presence of looming opposition lingered, urging him to question if his newfound agency could withstand the scrutiny yet to come. The moment approached when he would have to choose: remain calm in the face of hostility, or become the storm challenging every precept. Amidst these thoughts, Jake wondered what powerful confrontations awaited. Was he ready to face the real tests of leadership ahead? As Jake awoke the following morning, the tension that lingered through the night clung to him like an unwelcome guest. The successful retort in the boardroom replayed in his mind, but with each remembrance, self-doubt seeped in alongside. Was his momentary triumph merely a fluke? Was he truly capable of leading amidst the corporate crucible? He dressed deliberately, crafting his outfit as thoughtfully as the proposals he now held close. Each piece of clothing represented a layer of confidence he was attempting to weave into his professional persona. Looking in the mirror, he silently willed himself to embrace the weight of leadership. Today would be different. He would step visibly into the power dynamic that had so far eluded him. Arriving at the office, Jake's first challenge greeted him in the form of a report from the data analytics team, overflowing with contradictory interpretations. They had reached conclusions different from the ones he had anticipated based on his research. An uneasy knot formed in his stomach as he read through their critique, the specter of Amanda's earlier mockery lurking just behind his thoughts. Could he withstand the inevitable pushback? Gathering his team for a meeting, he sensed a shift in the atmosphere. Uncertainty hung in the air, but so did a degree of anticipation, an invitation for genuine dialogue rather than confrontation. Jake aimed to foster this collective energy, hoping to galvanize the team into forging a cohesive strategy. I value each of your insights. Let's unpack these numbers together because they are critical not just for my vision but for all of us, he began, his voice steady and earnest. As they discussed, Jake consciously let the fear of criticism slide aside, anchoring himself in the belief that vulnerability could ultimately unite them. Yet beneath this intention, a subtle flicker of frustration ignited when Amanda popped her head through the door mid-discussion, her presence commanding attention like a black cloud darkening the horizon. Is this a brainstorming session, or is this where the world's greatest strategies go to die? She quipped, aiming for a sardonic hit. The group's energy shifted, and Jake's determination to respond with poise ignited a new resolve within him. Amanda, we're actually working through some critical feedback on our approach. Instead of deriding the process, why don't you share your insights? Your experience can undoubtedly sharpen our focus. He watched her jaw tighten for a moment before she blinked, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. The silence in the room stretched, mirroring his rising internal tension. Had he asserted himself yet again, truly shifting the dynamic? Her response would be revealing. "I'm not saying it's a complete disaster, but buzzwords and niceties won't get us results," Amanda retorted, albeit slightly less condescendingly than before. As she continued, Jake heard hints of uncertainty in her tone, a softening he hadn't anticipated. The discourse unfolded organically, with the team diving deeper into collaborative exploration. They dissected the data until it began to reveal its secrets, showing new pathways that they hadn't initially envisioned. Jake felt invigorated. Their synergy was what he had been striving to cultivate, yet fear almost made him miss it. With every passing hour, a shift took root. Jake allowed himself to engage in the messy process of leadership, confronting his fears head-on rather than retreating, a necessary transformation for him in this pivotal role. As the day drew to a close, he took a moment to reflect, the vibrant discussions echoing in his mind as a new chapter, one marked with resilience and cooperation. But even as he relished the triumph of the day, an uneasy feeling resided deep within him. Was Amanda truly starting to see him as an equal, or was it simply a temporary lull in something more sinister? Seeking clarity, he decided he needed to confront the source of the unease, the business strategy session looming on the horizon, where major decisions would solidify his role within the corporate construct. Would he find the strength to embrace potential backlash, or would the tides turn against him in an unforeseen way? The anticipation stirred as he readied himself for the intricacies that lay ahead, questioning whether he was truly prepared to stand resolute in the storm that was bound to come. The morning of the business strategy session dawned, and with it, Jake felt a palpable sense of dread creeping in from the corners of his mind. The air in the office was thick with unspoken expectations and competitive tension that seemed to elevate every conversation to a whisper of judgment. Today was his chance to solidify his place within the hierarchy of the firm, but it also marked the potential for public humiliation, a gamble that could either elevate him or plunge him into chaos. Jake steeled himself as he made his way to the conference room, clutching a folder containing his meticulously crafted proposals. Each page represented countless hours of research and collaboration with his team. Yet self-doubt still held him in an icy grip. What if Amanda seized the opportunity to undermine him, exposing any gaps in his reasoning? Was his information compelling enough to stand against seasoned executives known for their merciless scrutiny? As he entered the conference room, the space exuded an aura of power. Dark wood panels gleamed under the sharp fluorescent lights, and the polished oval table seemed to reflect his growing anxiety. He took a deep breath, grounding himself in his resolve. With the team finally assembled, Amanda slid effortlessly into the seat across from him, her demeanor confident, exuding authority that threatened to eclipse him once again. The others took their places, and Jake felt their collective gaze settle on him, an invitation and a challenge wrapped into one. "Thank you all for being here. Today, we review our strategic initiatives moving forward," he began, his voice steadying with each word. He was determined to project confidence, attempting to mask the turmoil rumbling within. As Jake presented his data, a surge of adrenaline coursed through him, urging him to engage his audience rather than retreat into presentation mode. The numbers revealed crucial opportunities and potential pitfalls, and with every slide, he aimed to evoke a genuine conversation. But Amanda's interruptions came faster than anticipated. "Jake, your interpretation clearly lacks depth. Are we really supposed to gamble on this flimsy analysis?" Her tone dripped with derision, a calculated strike aimed at undermining his authority. Each comment she made stung, testing his nerve. Yet instead of crumbling, something within him ignited, a forceful need to redefine the narrative. Seeking to reclaim the narrative, he took a moment to breathe deeply, centering his thoughts. "Amanda, I appreciate your perspective, but I believe it's essential to question the foundation of our assumptions here. What if we view this data through a different lens? Perhaps it was his newfound approach to vulnerability that had spurred this moment of clarity. Instead of resorting to defensiveness, he invited dialogue, posing questions as he maneuvered through the session. The discussion blossomed, taking unexpected turns. Team members began to engage with their own ideas and strategies, creating a collaborative environment that began to overshadow Amanda's razor-edged critiques. But as the discourse thrived, a nagging concern crept in. Was Amanda simply conceding to regroup at a later time? Had he unintentionally lured her into complacency only to have her resurface with more venom? At the end of the session, Jake felt an unusual sense of accomplishment. He had navigated the complexities of leadership while maintaining his integrity. But even amidst this victory, the harbored tension lingered. He knew this was only the beginning of what could become a long and tumultuous battle for respect within this unforgiving corporate landscape. As he gathered his materials, Jake resolved to remain vigilant and proactive. He would need to prepare for Amanda's next move while continuing to foster the momentum he'd built today. The stakes had heightened, and he was acutely aware that the coming weeks would prove critical. But as Jake stepped out of the conference room, a ripple of uncertainty washed over him. Suspicion shrouded the air. Had he effectively shifted the dynamics, or had he merely delayed the inevitable confrontation? Would he discover the strength within himself to navigate this corporate labyrinth, or would he find himself ensnared in an even deeper web of deceit and rivalry? After the session, Jake lingered in the hallway, grappling with the weight of his own thoughts. The lingering buzz of conversation and the clinking of coffee cups from the break room only heightened his awareness of the stakes in this rapidly evolving atmosphere. He leaned against the wall, determined to make sense of the victory he'd just wrestled from the jaws of Amanda's criticism. Was it truly a win if the battle was far from over? Jake could feel the gears of his mind whirring. He reviewed the presentations, dissecting each interaction. Each moment of defiance felt exhilarating. It was as if he had crossed a threshold into a new realm of confidence. But already doubts crept in again. What defenses would Amanda prepare? He knew she was assessing this setback and planning her counterattack, plotting to regain her foothold. With a renewed sense of urgency, Jake grabbed his phone, scrolling through his contacts until he reached Sarah, the firm's communications director. Her expertise lay in conveying ideas that moved people, a skill he revered but often felt he lacked. "Hey, it's Jake. Can we brainstorm tomorrow? I need some guidance navigating the politics in our team," he said as he paced down the corridor. "Of course. Just let me know the time. I'm here for you." Her warmth caught him off guard, and he felt the uncertainty lift momentarily. After hanging up, Jake sat at his desk, reviewing his proposals once more. He started to notice patterns in his own narratives, the places where he had allowed Amanda's influence to dictate his confidence. He recognized that he had kept his focus too narrow, trusting the data alone to inform his arguments. An invaluable lesson had bloomed from that vulnerability he refused to drown in. Collaboration was key, not only with his team, but also in envisioning how his ideas fit within the greater context of the company's goals. He opened a clean document, outlining new strategies that would include the perspectives of others. What if I incorporated different angles from team members during presentations? Could collective ownership dilute Amanda's power? The thought sparked something within him. His desire to foster a genuine team dynamic emerged as a counterbalance to Amanda's antagonism. As Jake advanced in this newfound strategy, he resolved to turn the tides by preparing for potential challenges. Researching competitive strategies outside the conference walls, he instinctively began framing arguments that drew on real-world analogies. If data wouldn't stand up on its own, he would connect it to experiences that evoked emotion and urgency. Days crept by, each slowly intertwining with his budding plan. Conversations flowed more easily as his team started contributing ideas to the proposals. He felt momentum building, a collective pulse surging through the group. They translated numerical predictions into compelling stories of innovation. Still, Amanda's specter loomed large. And then, at an unexpected lunch meeting which included a prospective client, she entered the scene wielding her charming confidence like a weapon, greeting everyone with a devil-may-care smile. The discomfort shot through him, a signal that the moment of truth was approaching faster than ever. "Jake, can I have a word with you?" Amanda's tone dripped with feigned sincerity as their colleagues chatted about market trends. The undertone sent his heart racing. It felt as if she were calling him out to the arena once more. He followed her outside, the sound of the bustling office fading behind them, replaced by the quiet intensity of the moment. Jake braced himself for whatever verbal sparring awaited him. "What's this about?" he asked, uncertain, yet determined to stand his ground. "It's about our strategy around the client pitch next week." The challenge was clear, yet there was something in her demeanor that suggested deeper stakes were at play. The air between them crackled with dual motives. Jake could sense the confrontation looming, but his heart edged with newfound resilience. A choice sprang to his mind. Would he allow himself to succumb, or confront Amanda on her terms, turning the tide in a manner she least expected? "Let's discuss it, Amanda," he stated firmly, the readiness to engage flipping the dynamic, and for the first time, he felt an unshakable confidence building within him. He had faced her criticisms before. Now he readied for a strategic confrontation that could either cement his credibility or plunge them deeper into rivalry. As they began to walk, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that their next interaction would irrevocably alter the course of his journey. What he didn't yet realize was the pivotal moment born from this conversation could set him on a path for transformative change not only within the firm, but also within himself. Would he remain the reactive pawn in Amanda's game, or would he finally assert his narrative with a masterstroke? Jake's heartbeat echoed in his ears as he walked alongside Amanda, each step a mix of trepidation and determination. The sun-drenched hallway offered no comfort. It only served to illuminate the tension thickening between them. He recalled moments from the past, his unsteady feet under her scrutiny, the breath caught in his throat, each critique like a shadow looming larger. But today felt different. Today he was armed with clarity and resolve. "What's on your mind?" Amanda asked, her expression a study of indifference, though Jake sensed the undercurrents of competition. She seemed to relish the idea of launching into another debate about their pitch. In this fleeting moment, he could either slip back into the role of the critic's apprentice or refuse to be on the defensive. "We need to make this pitch more than just data. It has to resonate with our clients," Jake stated, anchoring his thoughts in the teamwork he had fostered over the past few days. The conversations with his team had borne fruit. Their insights had shifted his focus outward, and it wasn't just his voice anymore. Amanda raised her brows, feigning surprise. "You think emotional storytelling can replace solid numbers?" "Not at all. But they need to complement each other," Jake replied, the words feeling like a declaration. "Our clients want to feel the impact of our work. I believe if we show them the real-world implications, how our solutions can change lives, they'll connect more personally with our proposals. It's about engaging them." She regarded him, her expression morphing from skepticism to intrigue, distilling the complicated dynamics between them into a palpable moment. Could she be questioning her strategy? The flicker of something unguarded in her demeanor was a potential turning point. "Interesting approach," Amanda said, weighty pauses framing her words of appraisal. "But how do you intend to balance our usual methods with this softer approach? Some might think it's a step away from what's worked before." This was the moment Jake had prepared for, the crux of their interaction. By integrating the team's diverse insights to back it up, this isn't just me anymore, it's about us. The sense of unity felt strong, empowering him in that moment. Sarah's going to help refine these narratives, weaving them with the hard data we already have. I really believe it could spark something fresh. His heart raced. He saw a glimmer of acknowledgement in her eyes. Maybe the tide was truly shifting, that fragile balance between rivalry and collaboration, gently tipping towards cooperation. Amanda nodded slowly, her guarded facade giving way to a more sincere curiosity. "Let's hear what your team is proposing at our next meeting. It could very well change the way we present moving forward." As the moment simmered, Jake sensed the stakes of their conversation shifting dramatically. His challenge was emerging not just as a confrontation, but as an opportunity for growth, both for himself and the firm. Was he truly ready to commit to reshaping their dynamic? To guide Amanda toward a collaborative approach instead of a combative one? "Absolutely," Jake replied, his voice steadier than he felt inside. "I'll have a draft ready for you." Hours melted away. He spent the remainder of the day working with his team, compiling their perspectives. Their ideas poured forth, each suggestion sticky with enthusiasm and possibility. They crafted narratives that spoke not only to the head but to the heart, marrying data and emotion, forging connections that flickered with promise. By late afternoon, with the pitch as ready as it could be, the collaborative effort felt invigorating. It had transformed not just the proposal, but Jake's outlook on the challenges he faced. Yet, beneath that exhilaration lingered the unsettling thought of how Amanda would react. Was she genuinely willing to adjust, or was this merely a strategic ploy? Jake glanced at the feedback notes and proposal printouts spread across his desk, thoughts churning. He knew Amanda well enough to anticipate that she would counter with her own tactics, possibly undermining their collaborative endeavor. The descent into uncertainty loomed larger. The next day loomed, not just for the presentation, but for the next step in his development as a professional, an assertion of confidence and vision. Would he embrace the evolution ahead or buckle under the pressure of Amanda's wrath? Jake held his breath, knowing the next interaction with Amanda could either forge a new path for him or entrench the rivalry even deeper. The air buzzed with potential, threading through the decisions that lay ahead. Tomorrow he would meet the challenge and find out. Would he emerge as a leader within the firm or remain an adversary caught up in the undertow of someone else's ambitions? The morning sun streamed through the corporate glass, illuminating Jake's resolution as he stood before his colleagues for the pivotal client pitch. No longer was he the janitor who scrubbed floors. He was a man with ideas, an innovator ready to claim his place among the company's thinkers. Each heartbeat echoed determination as he glanced at the assembled team, their faces a blend of anxiety and hope. Today would cement his journey from obscurity to recognition, a transformation he yearned to showcase. Jake reflected on how far he had come. The journey from the sterile confines of the janitor's closet to this conference room marked a metamorphosis. He moved like a seasoned speaker, confidence radiating from every word. As he presented the meticulously crafted pitch, combining facts with compelling narratives, voices of his colleagues woven within, the energy in the room shifted. The once skeptical audience leaned forward, absorbed in his vision. He not only projected an innovative approach, but he demonstrated the power of collaboration. Midway through the presentation, he noticed Amanda's expression soften. Gone was the smug indifference. Now, intrigue and uncertainty flickered in her eyes. The stories he told resonated, embodying not just data, but the human impact of their product. He saw acceptance, a nod to his growth. This was the culmination of his evolution. He was no longer bound by labels. As he reached the end of his presentation, he felt an exhilaration unlike any other. He had proven to himself that he could turn critiques into springboards for creativity. The room erupted into applause, and for the first time, Jake acknowledged the profound shift within him, the validation of hard work and self-belief. They may never fully appreciate his past struggles, but today, the audience saw him for who he was, a competent leader, a visionary, and a father who had worked tirelessly for a better future. Jake took a moment to bask in the glow of the applause before addressing the team. This was a collaborative effort. Every insight contributed was vital in reshaping our approach. Together, we can redefine how we engage our clients. The enthusiasm from his team filled the air, amplifying the spirit of teamwork that transformed adversity into strength. In the days following the successful pitch, the corporate culture shifted subtly yet significantly. Jake's ideas sparked discussions across departments, challenging old paradigms. The board recognized his contributions in meetings, inviting him into strategic discussions and elevating his status within the company. Their acknowledgement felt like the ultimate accolade, a profound validation of his journey, one that reinforced his self-worth and confidence. Amidst this revolution, Amanda's facade cracked. She approached him for feedback on a project, marking an unexpected collaboration. Jake welcomed the opportunity, setting aside the rivalry that had defined their earlier interactions. The transition from adversaries to colleagues opened a gateway for shared insights and mutual respect. That pivotal shift solidified his idea. Growth could result from embracing vulnerability and collaboration rather than combat. Jake found himself transformed entirely, having wedged his way into a position of genuine influence. His initial goals shifted from merely proving his worth to realizing he had a vision that could guide others. As his role expanded, he began mentoring new employees, nurturing fresh talent the way he had been nurtured by Professor Collins. He created pathways for others, aspiring to show them that tenacity could surmount obstacles, transforming struggles into triumphs. Mia looked at her father with pride. The same twinkle of admiration mirrored in her young eyes ignited within him a fervor for achievement. Jake secured a promotion, but more importantly, he earned respect that came not from a degree, but from experience, ingenuity, and courage. This metamorphosis redefined his legacy, not just as a janitor turned executive, but a contributor aiding others in their own journeys through understanding, vulnerability, and collaboration. As he glanced across the office floor, the trajectory of his life showcased the essence of determination. He had redefined not just his identity, but the corporate culture around him. Jake had conquered the suffocation of stereotypes. He stood tall, fully aware of his strengths and worth. This journey of growth and transformation encapsulated the spirit of empowerment. It revealed that anyone can rise above their circumstances through sheer will, resilience, and the willingness to change narratives. Jake had not only achieved individual excellence, he had created a legacy of innovation rooted in collaboration, resilience, and limitless potential. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about Jake's incredible transformation, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. You need to show your support. Do it now. Don't wait even one more second to share.